Friday, October 21st, 2016, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. I'd like to talk about the trade deficit that one of the candidates goes on about, that the U.S. is losing hundreds of billions of dollars every year. And that candidate, of course, is Donald Trump. And I agree with him that the U.S. is losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year. But one thing I disagree with him is that we can't blame foreign countries for it totally. As the United States, we need to look deeper on why there is a trade deficit and why there's so much imbalance in the world. So first of all, I want to bring up a chart of the U.S. balance of trade going back to 1950. So look at how from 1950 up until the early 70s, that balance of trade there was a balance, basically. It was hugging that zero line. And then since the early 70s, it started to move. And it accelerated lower as well from the mid-90s. So the deficit has increased. And one thing that's interesting is that from 1950 to 1971, 73, the world was on a gold standard on Bretton Woods. The U.S. could not print money willy-nilly. It had to have the gold backing to the dollar. So trade was based on real money. And I say real money because gold and silver are real money. When asked in 1912 at the Peugeot Committee in Congress, J.P. Morgan, when asked what gold was, he said money, and that's it. And he also said that everything else was credit. So there you go. You see, from 1950 until 1971, the global trading system was done in a currency that had gold backing. The United States had the reserve currency because they had the most gold, but they couldn't just print money out of thin air to basically buy goods and services from other countries. So that's why there was a trade balance. And most other countries had a trade balance, even though some, exported more than others. But the system allowed for the balancing. Because if you ran a trade balance for too long, a trade deficit, for too long, you would run out of gold and you'd basically be kicked out of the system. So it allowed for discipline. So it would be interesting to know what candidate Trump how he really plans to eliminate that trade deficit. Is he going to bring the world back on the gold standard, or at least the U.S.? He keeps blaming people like the Chinese for the trade deficit. But I'm sorry, there wouldn't be a trade deficit as huge as this if we were still on the gold standard of the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s. And one way to explain this would be a good analogy that I thought is, for example, let's say a city or a neighborhood in a big city. One street was called USA Street. The streets next to the USA Street were called UK and Europe Street. And then further away from that neighborhood, you had China Street, Brazil Street, Africa Street. And up until 1971, the people who lived in these streets, they dealt with each other with real money. But USA Street, the people on that street were hardworking. They were better educated, for example, and it was a wealthier part of the neighborhood or the town or the city. But then in 1971, USA Street was so wealthy that they decided to actually buy a Xerox machine or a copying machine and actually start printing their own money. And they didn't allow anyone in that town or neighborhood to print money. They were the only ones allowed that copying or Xerox machine, and they printed receipts for the money that was used up until then. And then they started actually going around everywhere with those pieces of paper and telling people, "Oh, here, we're gonna buy this from you," and people thought, wow, these guys are really rich. We'll take their piece of paper. And what that did as well, that allowed America to buy a lot more than they really could afford. And they didn't have to work anymore either. So they were just printing paper and buying things from the rest of the town. And streets like the UK and Europe Street, they were closer to America's, to USA Street. They were also in on the game. They couldn't do as much as the US, but they were friends with the USA. So they did the same thing. And they also ran up a lot of debt and deficits. And a lot of their people stopped working because they didn't need to, because they could just print the money and then buy things for nothing. And then, but what happened is the people around the poorer neighborhoods, they started like working and actually making things, because these people in the rich neighborhoods, they wanted things, so many things. So that's what's happened to the world. And you can't blame, I'm sorry, Mr. Trump, and I've supported you, and I still think you're the best choice, even though I'm not, an American and I'm not going to be voting. But you need to be honest about why the U.S. has a trade deficit. You shouldn't blame other countries for it. It's the Americans, Nixon, Kissinger, who drew up this system where everyone in the world is forced to use your pieces of paper. And then what that encourages is for you guys not to work. And that's why there's such huge unemployment. And people, why work when you can print the money? And while other, people around the world, they'll work for a lot less to get your pieces of paper. So all your businesses as well and manufacturers, they move to the other side of the world because these people will work for nothing because they want to become as rich as you. And now they are. And what has happened is that Americans really, people are not trusting anymore. The other streets, like Brazil Street or Africa Street, China Street, wherever, they're starting to think, boy, how long can they keep printing these pieces of papers and buy our things? They're starting to think, are they still really that rich? So that's what's happening. That's why there's so much trade imbalance in the world. And it's easy to see why. It's ever since Nixon took us off the gold standard on August 15th, 1971, the Nixon shock. And that's it. So, Mr. Trump, yes, the trade deficit is a bad thing. It makes America poorer, but it also is not the fault of other countries. It's the fault of the country that actually started this system, and that's the USA. You have to look more at yourself and renegotiate with the rest of the world a system that's fair for all. Of course, fair for America. If you sell something of value, you get something back of value. You can't print the money. So that's what I wanted to talk about, the trade balance and the huge deficit that America runs. I think it's about 700 to 800 billion a year. But don't just blame the Chinese for it. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to donate to my channel, there's some links below in the description. Take care.